Hello, my friends. I hope you are hearing me. We are live on Syriana Analysis almost 40 minutes ago. President Donald Trump announced a blatant aggression against Syria, against the Syrian state and the Syrian people. It was 5 minutes before his announcement. Uh, there is 5 minutes before his announcement, the American cruisers started to bomb Syria. Tomahawk missiles fell on Damascus, on Misyaf, and on other cities, but mainly in the surroundings of Damascus. I'm trying to trace the news from the sources. At the moment, the situation is still chaotic because of the continuous strikes. At the moment, I believe the strikes stopped. Aleppo and Latakia and Homs were not targeted. This is the latest news. Damascus was targeted, and now in the surroundings of the airport of Damascus is now targeted. The Syrian air defense systems are intercepting a lot of Tomahawk missiles. It's not like some people think that all the missiles are falling on our heads. That's not true. The Syrian army, in coordination with the Russian army, are intercepting many Tomahawk missiles. This is not targeted bombing. This is not similar to the last year bombing of Shayrat Air Base. This time there were maybe we didn't count it yet, but it's up to 100 missiles which have been fired from the Mediterranean Sea with the participation of the United States, France, and Britain. Let me remind you, the Syrians are calling it a trilateral aggression. This is similar to the trilateral aggression by France, Britain, and the Israelis on Egypt in 1956. But today I'm following my friends in Damascus. I'm getting their news. Hopefully they are all well. But the moral of the Syrian people are high, and I can guarantee you that they are at the moment they are making live streaming from their balconies. I can see many of them are doing that on social media. But let's talk about this strike from a different angle. Today, the OPCW, the Organization for the Prohibition of the Chemical Weapons inspectors, they arrived to Syria, and tomorrow they were going to start their investigation in Douma whether or not there was a chemical attack there. Our information, the Syrian information, the Iranian information, the Russian information, the investigators from our side, they confirmed that there was no any chemical materials in the scene of the attack, the alleged attack, and but in order to have a concrete conclusion, the Syrian state invited and accepted the OPCW investigators to start their work tomorrow in Damascus to conclude whether or not they were chemical weapons. So the attack came even before the investigation, and this is a blatant aggression against a sovereign state by imperialist governments trying to force the Syrian government on its knees. For 7 years, we were telling that this is a proxy war against Syria. This is not a revolution. And people were calling us conspiracy theorists because they wanted the people to believe that this is a war, this is a revolution for democracy and human rights. They were not telling you the truth that what happened in Syria from day one, it was an armed insurgency by Islamist terrorists, by the Muslim Brotherhood, by Islamist Salafists, who were armed, financed, supported by the United States and its allies. Let me remind you this, that the former foreign minister of Qatar, only a few months ago on a Qatari TV, he confessed with his own tongue that the United States and Qatar and Turkey and Saudi Arabia, they were all gathering, the generals, the army were gathering in Turkey, in southern Turkey, and they were sending arms, ammunition, and training to even Al Nusra Front, Jabhat al Nusra, Al Qaeda. This was from day one an act of aggression against Syria. It was never been a revolution, and it won't be a revolution. The people of Syria, the vast majority of them, were and still with the Syrian government, and any credible and monitored elections will prove that the President Assad and his government, they enjoy the support of the vast majority of the Syrian people. So let's go back to what's going on now. I'm following the news, as I mentioned, from the sources, and till this second, the Syrian army air defenses are intercepting Tomahawk missiles. Now it is 4:45 in Damascus, and still the Tomahawks falling on Syria, and the Syrian air defenses are still intercepting these missiles, and they succeeded to gun down many Tomahawk missiles. Let's see if these attacks will be prolonged attack, because Trump said this is a targeted attack. That means it should over within hours now. If not, I believe there will be a retaliation, and there will be the developments could go out of the hands. And we, as Syrians, we believe that this shouldn't develop into a wider regional war. This should stop here, because the Syrian people have no interest in regional war on our territories or even international war. We are fighting only for our sovereignty. We are fighting for our nation, our constitution, our sovereignty, and our people. This is not the property of any other country. This is the Syrian Arab Republic. Only the Syrian people have the right to choose their leader. Only the Syrian people have the right to have this land. And only the Syrian people have the right to choose how to live on this territory. So no one should dictate on us. And this is why they are targeting us in Syria, because we are saying no to the United States. We are saying no, we are not going to kneel to the dictates of the United States. This is nothing to do with internal reforms, internal democratic, and all this blah 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 that is going on now. I'm okay. Okay, for sure, 13 Tomahawk missiles were intercepted by the Syrian army only in the area of Kisweh in near Damascus. I'm talking about only in near Kisweh. 13 Tomahawk missiles were gunned down and destroyed in the air. Okay. Okay. For sure, the Americans succeeded to target the research center in in uh, in Homs, I believe. They trying to target the Jamraya area in also in Damascus. So this time the act of aggression was not let's say only against one military airbase. So let me ask you this question, since we are talking now. When last time Donald Trump struck a Shayrat airbase, and he said that he destroyed the chemical capabilities of the Syrian army in Shayrat airbase, and we all know that, in that if there were any chemical materials in that area and Trump bombed it, the entire area, at least 2 kilometers, the surrounding of the airport, and including civilian villages surrounding this military airport, would be affected by the chemicals. And there were no chemical materials in that airport, and there were no chemical attack by the Syrian army at that time against Khan Sheikhoun in northern Hama. And let me remind you that Tillerson, Mattis, the defense minister of the United States, he concluded and he said that they don't have an evidence of the chemical that the Syrian government used chemical weapons against Khan Sheikhoun last year. So even the attack of last year was even not it's already illegal, but also they lied on the American people and they said that it was against because of the use of the chemical weapons at that time. I also let me remind you this because the OPCW they refused to go to Khan Sheikhoun to take samples from the chemicals. They said they cannot guarantee their security because it's in the hands of Al Qaeda. They didn't went there. The white helmets they gathered these materials and they gave them to the OPCW. So a third party collected these chemicals and they sent them to the OPCW, and the OPCW at that time said that it was the Syrian government who used these chemical weapons. So first they violated the charter of the OPCW, which is the third party cannot give materials. The OPCW should go and check by itself because we all know that the white helmets, Al Qaeda, they work together and they manipulate the old scenes. At the moment now, the place where the chemical attack happened last year in Khan Sheikhoun, the entire area is manipulated. It's changed so that no one can go and do further investigation. So for now. Unfortunately, there are many explosive voices coming from Damascus, from Meleha. Now there are voices coming out from Meleha. Okay, Macron says that he ordered his army to bomb. Oh, I want to ask the people in the West, those who are watching me now, including in the United States, Britain, and France, what did you do to prevent this, the act of aggression against Syria? Did you go to the streets to protest against your governments? What you are planning now to do against your governments? Do you think that this, the our lives and our states are just nothing, it's invaluable for you? Or do you think that we are just numbers in Syria, just insects dying every day because of the invasion of Iraq? More than 1 million people died there for a lie. For a lie. It was a lie that led to the invasion, occupation, and the destruction of Iraq. Now the entire Iraq is completely like you cannot remember the old Iraq anymore. It's already divided and a lot of conflicts and bombings. And thanks to that bombing, ISIS emerged. In our area, if they overthrew Saddam Hussein and Al Qaeda and ISIS, they overthrew Muammar Gaddafi, Al Qaeda and ISIS. They overthrew Hosni Mubarak, and the Muslim Brotherhood came to power. I don't understand how any those governments who call themselves civilized governments, they call themselves pro-democracy, they call themselves liberal, they overthrow secular governments and install Islamist governments for us. The kind of a governments that take us hundreds of years back. They take us to the 4th and the 5th century. They returned back the beheadings, they returned back the forced burqa, they returned back the suicide bombings, they returned back the cooking of heads, eating human organs, act of cannibalism. And we are fighting those people who are the same people who are targeting the Western government and the Western people in Paris, in Nice, in Germany, in London, in the United States. Can you please understand the kind of a conflict, what kind of a conflict we have in Syria? Can you please understand that we are fighting Islamist terrorists who won't hesitate to fly planes in your own buildings? Can you please understand that we are fighting for our sovereignty? Can you please understand that we are not targeting the United States? We are not attacking the United States. We are not attacking Paris. We are not attacking London. In fact, the people, those who are the majority in Syria, they perceive the United States, the American people, the French people, the British people as their friends because we have many things in common with these people when we talk about the values, we talk about secularism, liberal values, and the governments of these states are supporting the backward Islamist Wahhabists in our country. They are supporting Jaish al-Islam. They're supporting Al-Qaeda. They're supporting Har Sham. They're supporting every group that want to implement Sharia laws in Syria. And we tell them on our dead bodies, they won't succeed. They can't succeed. They will not succeed because the Syrian people, they refuse these backward people to rule them. They have to put this as a ring on their ears. I want to check if there are any updates. Oh, they are now bombing for the Republican Guard headquarters in Damascus. Oh, 100% they bombed the research center in Masyaf. They bombed the airport of Khalkhale, the military airport of Khalkhale in Sueda, 100%. The airport of Damascus is still untouched. One of my sources reporting to me now that the Syrian army succeeded to intercept many, maybe the majority of the Tomahawk missiles falling on Damascus from the cruisers of the United States, France, and Britain in the Mediterranean. And also one note: RT is offline. I don't know why. There is something technical, or maybe the Americans used some sort of technology to silence RT now. I'm curious to know what will be the retaliation of the Syrian side, the Russian side, and the Iranian side, because guys, this is not a game, this is not an Xbox, this is not a PlayStation. When the Americans bomb the Syria, Damascus, there is a period of absorption, let's call it, that you try to intercept as much as missiles as possible and check the damages. I believe the Americans didn't succeed to cause huge damage in the infrastructure of the Syrian army, and it won't lead to stopping the Syrian army operations, whether it is to Daraa or towards the east, because there is an intention to go towards the east as well, where the Americans are occupying our territories there. Oh, one of my sources saying just right now the Syrian army gunned down a Tomahawk missile over Damascus and he saw it with his own eyes. Guys, I'm so sorry I cannot read your comments right now because I'm really trying to follow up what's going on and trying to bring the latest from in Syria. Okay, so the Syrian army at the moment is using the S-200. It's using the Panzer S-1 to intercept these missiles. We don't know yet if the Syrian army used the S-300. Of course, they used the book, they used the S-200, and they used the Panzer S-1 for sure, 100%. Oh, guys, let me know your opinion about this blatant aggression against the Syrian army and the Syrian people, because most of my audiences are actually from Western states, and we in Syria, the purpose of this channel is to deliver you the picture, but also to ask you for an action, to do something, to understand that we are not numbers here. We are human just like yourself. And you guys are voting for the people who are bombing us. Please bear in mind that if you vote for someone who is a warmonger and he wants to bomb Syria, there will be blood on your hands as well. Thank you guys for your patience. I'm trying to post the live streaming now on social media so that people also can watch it, and I will come back to you with the latest. I'm bringing the latest from my Syria, from my military sources in Syria. We are trying to cover. I'm trying to cover everything second by second. Today I tweeted and said that the Syrian army is on high alert. And they are expecting, because they were expecting strikes by the Syrian, by the American forces. Some people didn't believe me, but it happened. For 4 days, I couldn't sleep. 4 days. I'm awake till 6 a.m. in German time, means 7 a.m. in Syria, and we were expecting this. I always believed that Trump will do this act of aggression. I always believe that Trump will act because they climbed the stairs very high into extent that they cannot go down anymore. The level of the threats and the rhetoric was very aggressive against Syria, against Russia, and even Trump, he was just trying to prove that he is not a Russian agent to by bombing Syria or trying to damage the Russian interest in this is not a joke, guys. This is international relations. They couldn't be in the 21st century a president who is tweeting about his beautiful missiles on Twitter. These beautiful missiles, quote unquote, are killing people now in Syria, and we are trying to defend ourselves. We didn't go to the American borders. The Americans came to Syria to bomb Syria. This is against international law, against the UN Charter, and even let me remind the people who may be joined now our live coverage that the OPCW investigators are now in Damascus and they were going to start their investigation tomorrow in Duma to conclude whether or not there were chemical materials used in Duma. And although the Russian, the Syrian armies did preliminary investigation in that area, they found out that there were no chemical materials at all in that area, and all the things were staged. There were no chemical attack. What happened was that there was a bombing of one of the buildings, and because there was fire, and the people, what do we say? They smelled or they took in this the burning oxygen, So they felt that they went to the hospital, and one of the white helmet people came and said that this is a chemical attack against them, and everybody started to shower each other with water, believing that it's a chemical attack. There was no chemical attack according to the Syrian army and the Russian army. But despite this, the Syrian government invited the OPCW experts and investigators to go now to, they are now in Damascus, and tomorrow they are going to start their investigation. And Donald Trump, he bombed Syria before the investigation. What do you conclude from that? What do you understand from that? Why the Americans are afraid from the investigation in Duma? Why are they bombing before the investigation? And even and let's remember also that the Syrian government, they destroyed all their chemical weapons in 2015 with the help of the Americans. There was a deal between the Russians and the Americans, and on Russian cruisers, on American cruisers, the Syrian chemical weapons were all destroyed. And according to the OPCW and according to the American administration, the previous American administration, the Syrians destroyed all their chemical weapons. And let me remind you that the chemical weapons of Syria were never used, and it was never intended to be used. The chemical weapons were only a last resort against a foreign invasion of Syria. It was a reaction on the Israeli more than 200 nuclear warheads that they have in Israel. We all know that when Gaddafi, he dumped his chemical weapons, biological weapons, his country was invaded, he was killed. Saddam Hussein, when he got rid of his chemical and biological weapons, his country was invaded and he got killed. Now North Korea, they insist on their nuclear weapon because this is a deterrence weapon. Neither North Korea nor Iraq nor Libya, none of the states in the world used chemical nuclear weapons. These are deterrent weapons against foreign invasions. And when you don't have such weapons, this is what happens. We are living in a jungle. This is not international relations. There is no UN anymore. The UN cannot stop the blatant aggression of Donald Trump and his army now on Syria. When you have a deterrent weapon, the Americans cannot bomb you. Can the Americans bomb now the DPRK? Can they bomb North Korea? Just a question. Just think about it. Think why the people or why the governments are trying to develop nuclear weapons. Why are they relying on such programs? Because of these actions, because of the invasions of the United States, because of the occupations of the United States, because of the illegal wars against us as a people of the Middle East. Okay, for the moment, the Americans tried to target 9 locations. They tried to bomb the Republican Guard in Damascus. They tried to target the air defense base in Kasiyun Mount in Damascus. They tried to target the Mezze military air base also in Damascus. They tried to target a Dumer military airbase in also Damascus. They tried to target the research center, the scientific research center in Barze in Damascus. They tried to target the scientific research center in Jamraya, also Damascus. They tried to target the Brigade 41 of the Special Forces, also in Damascus. They tried to target military positions near the eastern Kalamoun area in the suburbs of Damascus. They also tried to target military positions in El Qaswa, also in the suburbs of Damascus. So those are the main targets at the moment. There is an explosion now in Jamraya or Dimas, we don't know. Yeah, it's in Jamraya. They targeted Jamraya. Israel was targeting this area many times. I will post a video now on the live streaming. Maybe you can watch one of the videos that I found now on Facebook, or yeah, okay. Video. I am posting a video now. Maybe you can check in the comments. I posted it now twice, 2 times. Please check it. It's very hot here. I don't know why I'm sweating. Okay, the Pentagon just declared the end of the military operation now on Syria. That means that there won't be a prolonged attack. If they consider this targeted, we will try to trace the damage they caused. Of course, there were some of the Tomahawk missiles fell on Damascus and elsewhere. I will try to trace the damages they have caused in Damascus and in other cities, but the news are not bad at all. Nobody should expect that the Americans succeeded in destroying the capabilities of the Syrian army in order to continue its war against terrorism. The defense minister of Mattis of the United States, he says that they have targeted the bases where the chemical missiles were launched. So we have to ask, how come? Why did you target 3 scientific research centers if if you are talking about missile launchers? I mean, they think we are fools. I don't know how do they interpret it. They are treating us as if we are sheep that we cannot read, because I have to give you this information. When the troubles started in Syria, the first thing that the enemy did, with the help of their Islamist proxies, they assassinated the researchers, the engineers, those who were working in the military, in the scientific and engineering sectors of the Syrian army. I also want to give you an information that the last time Syria gunned down an Israeli F-16 few weeks ago, few months ago, it was an old S-200 system developed by the Syrian army, developed, and technologies have been added on this system in order to be able to trace the F-16 and gun it down. So this is not only about military capabilities, but also to try to destroy the Syrian scientific and engineering capabilities to develop their weaponry. Let's see if there is any news. Okay. The Pentagon said the military campaign is over, so they won't be a prolonged attack on Syria. We have to check. Let me post this. Uh, we have to check now the damages they have they did and the retaliation. Let's see how will the Syrians and the Iranians and the Russians will act against this blatant aggression against the sovereign state. In my opinion, they couldn't target the strategic, let's say, the backbone of the Syrian army. If the Americans targeted the Syrian army in a way that causes a huge damage for the Syrian army and its infrastructure and its capability to continue its operations against terrorism in Syria, there would be certainly a retaliation against the American cruisers. But as long as these attacks were, let's say, we were able to intercept most of the missiles, most of the tomahawks that have been launched from the cruisers of the Americans, of the French and the British on Syria, that means the Syrians, they don't need to retaliate against these cruisers and not to cause a regional war. We are not, and some people could be now, oh, why you are not targeting the Americans? Please, guys, this is not a joke, huh? We are not going to open a war with a nuclear country. We're not going to open a war with the NATO states. We're not going to open an open war with them. If we defeat their proxies on the ground in Syria, if we foil their regime change project, and if we foil their the intention to rob and take away our resources, our oil, to divide Syria, if we foil all these projects of the American administrations in Syria, we will be defeating them. This is the defeat that they are afraid of. If we defeat them underground in Syria, we defeat their proxies in Syria, we defeat their agents in Syria, that is a victory for us. Syria is not going to nail the Americans, so people should understand this, and we shouldn't call for World War III. It's not. Last time people said yes for World War, I think there were 60 to 70 million dead people, and I don't want my people to be distinct and exterminated. Syrians can defeat the Americans underground, their proxies, the Israeli proxies, the American proxies, the French proxies, the British proxies, the Turkish proxies. We can defeat them underground. We are almost on the verge of a victory in Syria. A couple of years and we will be victorious. And after that, when we emerge from this as a stronger regional power, and when we coordinate our relations more and more and more, and take our strategic relations into higher stages with the Iranians, with the Russians, with Hezbollah, with China, with Bolivia, with Brazil, with India, with Pakistan, with all the friendly countries that they stood beside us. There will be a new world order. There will be a multipolar world order. The Syrian war will be a reason for the rise of a multipolarity again. And multipolarity will bring a better international system. Multipolarity will bring less wars. As long as the Americans are alone leading the international system and nobody is able to stop them, that means this. That means act of aggression. That means that they can just bomb anybody they want. That means more states will seek for nuclear weapons and weapons of mass destruction in order to avoid this aggression, in order to avoid occupation, in order to avoid the destruction of their countries. We have built a very beautiful country in Syria for in the last 50 years. We were much more advanced from our regional countries, in exception to Turkey. We had self-sufficiency, we had free education, we had free healthcare. Please answer me, the students in the United States, much debt do you have to the universities? My brother is now an engineer and he paid zero. He's a very successful engineer. Most of my friends are graduated from the Syrian universities. In German we say kostenlos. They say kosten. It's free. Our lives for people, a family needed $200 to $300 per month to survive. Now check the prices, 10 times more because of the war. Who told you that the people wanted to overthrow the government? Please check your sources. Let's see if there is any new development now. You can't believe how many notifications is coming to me now. I'm just not able to read them all. The not only the Pentagon, not only the defense minister, but also the chief of staff, the general staff of the Americans said the act of aggression has stopped now. So it started 4 a.m. in the morning, Damascus time, and it it took around 1 hour and 20 minutes. 1 hour and 20 minutes of continuous bombing of Damascus and other cities. Okay, I'm getting information that the Syrian army also stopped its air defense interception because there is no more attacks coming from the tomahawks. And believe me, we will rise from this. We will emerge stronger from this. This attack is very stupid. If you think it logically, this attack will bring the Syrian people more and more in support of the Syrian government. This attack will bring more people with the Syrian army. If there were anyone who has some doubts that the Americans are our enemies, that the Americans are interested in not interested in democracy and human rights, but interested in their own interests, in geopolitical interests. Now the people are convinced. Now the vast majority of the Syrians will be with the government. This is a stupid act by the Americans. The consequences will be positive for the Syrian government because they couldn't destroy the Syrian government, they couldn't destroy its military capabilities, and they couldn't destroy the backbone of the Syrian army, and they won't be able to stop the advancement of the Syrian army within few days, maybe let's say weeks. I'm not gonna be very optimistic. We are heading to Daraa. We will liberate Daraa. We will liberate the city of Daraa, the place that this so-called revolution started. We will fight the proxies of Israel in Daraa. We will defeat them, and we will take back Daraa. This is why the Americans and the Israelis and the British and the French are attacking Syria, not because of the chemical provocation, because the Syrians are mobilizing their forces to liberate the south of Syria from the proxies of Israel. They're mobilizing their forces to fight or to kick out the Americans from the eastern shores of the Euphrates. Today I was watching one of the retired generals who was in Syria illegally a few days ago in one of the American illegal occupation bases in Syria, and he is talking about the eastern shores of the eastern side of the Euphrates of it as if it is the property of the United States. He is telling the Fox News. Um, I will bring you his name. His name is General Reese. His name is General Reese, and he has now a company for just like a Blackwater mercenaries. And he's talking about the eastern side of Syria as if it is the property of the Americans. And he's saying that this is ours. We will keep it. We have to keep it, and we have to put missiles in that area targeted on Damascus. Can you imagine a level of arrogance, level of imperialism? What kind of people is that? I mean, how can they say that with a straight face? Imagine that Syria goes to the city of Mexico and takes it. Says, this is ours, guy. We will put missiles on Washington, D.C., and you have to deal with it because we are Syria. This is the Syrian exceptionism. What do you think about that? Please, somebody tell me, what do you think about that? Don't you find it funny and at the same time makes you angry? Because your home, your soil, your properties, somebody is just taking it from you. And he just says, this is ours because we are strong. You are strong by force, but we are stronger by our will and determination. Please let me remind you, in the 80s, the Americans, the French, and others, they sent Marines to Beirut, um, let's say, to kick out the Syrians from Beirut at that time. What did happen? What did happen at that time? 300 American and coalition soldiers dead in one bombing, no more. There will be American soldiers dying in Syria because of the occupation. The Americans are occupying Syria, it's not vice versa. If there is an occupation, there is a right of self-defense. It's guaranteed by international law, it's guaranteed by the UN Charter, Article 51, if I'm not mistaken. I don't like to make false statements because... Yes, Article 51 of the Charter. All nations have the right of self-defense. If there is any American watching me now, if any of your soldiers died in Syria, won't you ask why these soldiers are dying? What for? What for the American soldiers dying in Syria or will die in Syria? Did Syria attack the United States? No. Did Syria bomb or send ISIS to you? No. It is your allies, the Saudis, who armed, trained, and exported their ideology and caused all this mayhem around the world. Syria was never been the enemy of the United States. So why the Americans are on our soils to fight the Russians and to fight the Iranians? Let me remind you that when in 2015, when ISIS was advancing from Palmyra to Damascus and things were chaotic, Syria invited the Russians legally to come. And there is an agreement between Syria and Iran for mutual defense, mutual strategic defense. If any of these countries are targeted for an attack, both countries help each other. There are treaties, there are legal ways to defend each other. The Americans came, they occupied the territories that were in the hands of ISIS, and they occupied it for themselves. And now they are occupying our oil fields. The Americans, they don't need that oil fields because they have enough. But remember, they are occupying it because they want to deprive Syria from that resources. in order not to have enough resources to rebuild Syria once again. So if we don't have enough resources to rebuild our countries, we will go and take loans from the IMF or the World Bank, which is something that we refuse. I will check one last time if there is any, if there are newer developments. Oh, I know it. It's coming today. I had that feeling. The Russians had no, they didn't know about this attack when it's gonna happen. I am one of the few who believe that this act of aggression against Syria by the United States will lead to greater support by the Russian army to the Syrian army. I am one of the people who believe that this attack could have positive impact on Syria, because the Russians were saying to the Americans, "Come, let's cooperate to end terrorism in Syria." Now the Americans proved once again that they are bombing the only force, the only effective force against the Syrian, against these terrorists. I believe the Russians will increase their support into unprecedented levels after this attack. I will also post one of the videos in the comments below. I don't know if you are able to watch it, but I'm posting it in any ways. Okay. I'm posting Facebook links in the chat. Please check it so you can also watch some of the bombings. It seems let me check. I think the last missile fell 10 minutes ago on even in Sweda, in southern Syria. I'm now getting information from Sweda that the Syrian army they destroyed at least two Tomahawk missiles over Sweda, over 150 brigade. In Dumer, 11 Tomahawk missiles been destroyed. It seems more than 100 missiles been launched. But if we count it now, at least 50 of them were destroyed by the Syrian air defense systems. In Homs, there is no attack at all. In Aleppo, till the moment, there is no attack at all. In the suburbs of Damascus, 20 Tomahawk missiles been intercepted, 100%. The Pentagon says that their coordination with the Russian army was only the air coordination in order to avoid warplane accidents. The defense minister of the United States says that they don't plan for further attacks now, and the future decision is for Donald Trump. The Russian army participated in intercepting Tomahawk missiles in over the area of Homs. The Mattis, the defense minister, says that the amount of the weaponry that's been used today is twice the weapons been used in last year, but I believe it's more than twice, and I believe the Americans are not telling the entire truth, because, in my opinion, at least 50 Tomahawk missiles been intercepted today. At least. This is a preliminary report. I will refresh the news for last time. Okay. I'm very tired, believe me. Okay. It seems it's over. I will end up this live streaming, but I will tell you one thing, that the Americans, this was a blatant act of aggression against a sovereign state, against Syria, against the Syrian people, against a nation that is fighting international terrorism on its territories. There was no evidence whatsoever that the Syrian army used chemical weapons in Douma. The Syrian army destroyed its chemical weapons in 2015. The Russian and the Syrian armies concluded that there was no use of chemicals in Douma, neither false flag nor by any other side. The OPCW, the Organization for the Prohibition of the Chemical Weapons, they are in Damascus, and they are going to start their investigation tomorrow. Donald Trump bombed Syria before the investigation of the OPCW. He just said, fuck you, sorry, OPCW, fuck you, UN, fuck you, international law. He just bombed Syria based on YouTube images, based on the manipulation of the white helmets. We were telling this since the beginning of the white helmets, that its main purpose is to legitimize and give political legitimacy and media legitimacy for Al-Qaeda and for such actions. They were giving this humanitarian nature for what's happening in Syria, and they succeeded. Most of the pictures and the videos that have been used by the Americans and their allies are from the white helmets. So anyone who supports the white helmets, they are in support of this invasion as well, because this image has been used to bomb Syria. But the Syrians bravely intercepted most of the missiles of the Americans. And it will not affect the course of the war in Syria. We have the will, this is our territories, we have the determination, we will continue fight against terrorism, we will defeat them, and we will kick out the Americans from the Syrian soils. And it doesn't matter how many years does this take. Those who are tired, they should stop. And the war in Syria is not only by weapons. The war in Syria is on many levels, including media. So your support, guys, is highly appreciated. I really thank you so much for all your support, for all those who are trying to share the videos, to like, and to do all this social media stuff. I'm working alone in this. I'm here in my bedroom with this background, with my old laptop, and now I'm live on my mobile, and we can do defense. For those who are not subscribed, please do. Please share also this video and my channel with your friends. If there are any new developments, I will go live again. And for now, this is the end. I will just send you one message. They will not pass. In Arabic, when we say you will not pass or they will not pass, that means they will not succeed. We will emerge from this war victorious because we are the rightness is on our side, and we are the owners of this soil, and Syria will be victorious. This is my last message to you, and I hope peace prevails. We don't want any war, but if it's enforced on us, we will fight it. We don't have any other choice. Thank you very much, guys, for watching the video, and really thank you for all your support. Please spread the video. Please play a part. Please call your congressman. Please call your politicians, your representatives. Put pressure on them. You are voting for them. You have the democracies here. They should ask for your opinion before such an action. And see you in a better times. I hope there would be no more wars. Good night, guys.